Welcome to another episode of the Lone Recruiter Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Clementson, and if you're a recruiter out on your own or just lacking general guidance or support, you've come to the right place. Our episodes are designed to give you the motivation, the mentorship, and the advice you need to become the very best lone recruiter. So join us, grab a cup of coffee, and let's take your desk to another level. Now, today, I'm on my quest to interview 100 recruiters, ask them the same five questions, and just see what amazing results come out of those, or answers come out of those questions. And we're joined by Krystle from Verve Partners up in Newcastle. Krystle, welcome. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you. Nice to be on here.
Absolutely. And you came onto this. We don't know each other prior to having a chat today, just for people at home. I noticed that you had been following the podcast, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to reach out and say, hey, I see you following. Do you want to jump on? And you were like, yes, let's do it. So I love it.
It's a way to build a network.
That's it. So look, for my benefit and for anyone listening at home, would love to hear your background, your journey in recruitment, and how you got to where you are now. Give us your life story in 60 seconds. Go.
Yes, I've been in recruitment for 15 odd years. Only been with two firms over that time, one being a tier one for about 12 years. And then I moved over to Verve Partners 3 years ago, was their business manager, and then become an owner of the business with the other two partners in September last year. So 12 months in as a business owner, which has been a great ride and a great journey.
Wonderful. And you know what? And you would probably attest to this. I see a lot of recruiters' CVs, and for someone with that much experience, having only worked for two recruitment agencies is rare. And I'm the same. I've worked for one place prior to where I am now, and it's been 16 years and only two employers, or two places of work. So I don't know. I just don't see it.
I guess it's one of those things. It's the same job no matter where you go. So you may as well maintain your brand and continue to build your business under the brand that you've been on, rather than moving around.
Absolutely. So I'm actually quite excited to get into it, because I'm gonna guess there's some gold in what you've got for our questions today. So we'll jump into it straight away. As always, the first one is, if you only had one KPI to measure your desk or to measure where you're at in the recruitment land, what is the KPI that you're going to measure?
Yeah, such an interesting question. I think first off is I'm not a big believer on hard KPI targets.
No.
What I've experienced over the years is they're high numbers, which lead to very low conversions if they're not done correctly. So every activity should offer a quality return, and every recruiter should always be asking themselves what every KPI activity they do, what is my return on investment? And if you can't define what that is, you shouldn't be doing it. Specifically, one KPI is hard it's simply because it's all dependent on the discipline that an individual works across and what KPI works for them to achieve the highest converted outcomes. I would probably say my most favourite is definitely face-to-face meetings with clients, though. I think the connectivity that you can have and the relationships that you can create from those can certainly give you a lot more than anything else. And building that network and foundations, if you don't get anything out of that individual, chances are if you build a good relationship, it becomes a referral based element as well. So they're probably my most favourite KPI, if you'd like to call it, but it really does depend on what gets you the best outcomes.
I like that, and we're not a KPI driven environment whatsoever, and but I think everyone knows what they need to do in a certain period of time or at a given moment, and that essentially is a KPI or a goal or a metric that if you had to measure something you would go by. And we've actually just started asking that question at the beginning of the week, like, what's the metric that matters this week for you? Like, is it generating CVs? Is it closing deals? Is it getting interviews? And it's going to be different from week in, week out. And that was the penny drop moment for us, is that what's the point in KPIs that are just blanket numbers, which are really just a way to make sure you're doing your job. But if we trust people to do what they do and they're good at what they do, well, we don't need them. You know what you need to do.
Correct. And ultimately it comes down to the ROI, return on investment.
That's it. Lovely answer. So the second one is, and this one I hate asking, but because we all know just how dangerous that is, but if you had limited time, you saw this CV drop in, it was fantastic, it's in your market, you're excited to see it, but you look at the clock, you've got you've got, for whatever reason, only 3 questions you're allowed to ask this candidate. What are the 3 questions? And this is a hypothetical. You would never ask a candidate just 3 questions. Let's put that out there. But for the sake of the game, what are the 3 questions you're going to ask at interview if that's all you could ask?
And such a hard question. Like, very rarely would I ever spend less than 45 minutes with someone, which is so many questions. Aside from the obvious, which is situational, behavioral, technical, problem solving, I would ask a candidate is the role that I'm interviewing them for their first preference, or are there other roles that are preferable to them, to really engage their honesty behind that, and get an understanding of whether or not we're sitting in their preferred role.
And
Um,
you'd ask that right at the start. So you're assuming they're applied or they know a bit about the brief.
Oh, right at the start. I mean, I guess right at the start, you're getting an understanding of what direction they want to head, where they want to be,
Mm,
what attractive employers are out there in the market, what role is going to see them, fulfilled, and for what
mm,
period of time. Biggest question of all, why are you leaving your current role? Why can't your current employer offer this to you? What is
mm.
going on there at the moment? I mean, they would be my initial ones. I guess
I
the
actually,
nail.
I actually, I'm loving. Sorry to cut you off. I love this. I know it comes later, but this role versus what else you're looking at. Where does it rank? Like, what's your ranking of preferences? We all ask that question, but if they have applied to an ad and you give them that brief and what that looks like, asking them that question is actually quite valid too. Like, how does this role sit with the other ones that you're looking at? And that's when it comes out. Oh, I've kind of started looking at government in-house roles, and you go, okay, is that where you want to go? Not really. I just thought I'd check it out. Okay, so mine's a consulting role. How's that going to fit in then compared to these government roles? I actually like it. I actually really like it up front.
I also think it gives you, especially in the current market, it allows you to understand what would entice them more to the role that you're currently recruiting, which means you can go back and you can do a redesign with your client. If you've got the perfect candidate
Mm,
and they've got a role, but it's not quite what that candidate's looking for, who's to say we can't redesign to make it right? So, I like to be able to gauge that information so I can take it back to a client and sort of say, hey, this is a
mm.
possibility. What are your thoughts? This person can add this value to you. You weren't necessarily looking for it, but this could do wonders for your business.
Cool, cool. So was that one question? What have we got? What questions have we asked?
So the first one, I guess, without all of the introductive questions, it was,
Hmm.
what's their preference? My other one is, what attribute do you offer that other candidates can't offer in this role and to the employer?
Okay.
And where do you see yourself taking this role? Where do they see that role taking them? But in what duration? Because then you can get an understanding of the tenure and how long they're going to be there. At what point do they start getting itchy feet? And
Mm,
again, information for the client so they know how to really support that individual on their journey.
cool. I like that. I really like that.
Yeah,
Turn that question into another sell.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all about the pitch.
absolutely. Always
Um,
doing it right.
it's
Never
always
stop.
that's it. That's it. I should interject. Are you still actively on a desk now that you've brought into
No,
this?
no,
No.
I'm not actively on the tools as such.
Hmm.
Definitely, I'm constantly out, always speaking to clients and networking and
Hmm.
being on client meetings and things like that, but not actively running a desk as such. I'll
Cool.
jump in when need, and if
Yeah.
need be with the team, if they're stretched, if they're on leave or whatever that might be. But
Hmm.
yeah, not on the tools every day.
Cool. Cool. Third question for you is: when you did have those candidates in front of you, you had the offer, and you had to close them. What is your closing question, or what is your closing approach?
I find this one the hardest one because it also depends on the individual and their motivators. Like,
Mm.
I generally find that I tailor it to what I guess, their soft spot is, and how you can really influence them. But I guess the key things, if I wasn't necessarily focusing on that, what would or could stop you from progressing. And obviously, historically, I've always come to realise that candidates, if they're married or they've got partners, they really do like to loop in with them and make sure they're making the right decision, and that has stopped the process sometimes. So
Mm.
really understanding a good understanding of around what could or would stop you from progressing, and is there anything that anyone else you need to influence in this decision making process, and if you were offered the role, would you take it? I think there's an assumption made, and I've seen this many times, that your client comes back to you and says, "Hey, we want to offer this candidate." You ring the candidate really excited, "Hey, we want to offer you the role. It's so exciting. The client wants to offer you." So I don't want it. So really gauging, how they feel about the role. Would they take it if it was offered to them, and what would that look like?
And would you typically do that prior to releasing the offer?
Yes, absolutely. I would do it before I would even go and understand where my client was at. First and foremost, I understand where my candidate's at, how they feel, what their feedback is, how they're positioned, even understanding their timeline. Around next stages. Are they going on holiday? What's their notice periods? We generally find out a lot of information, but how often do we revisit it? And I think that's sometimes missed.
Yeah.
Let's just recap. Last time we spoke, you said 4 weeks notice. You're going to take a week off to spend with the family, have a bit of a break. So literally 5 weeks before you can start. Just want to make sure that's still the same.
Yeah, I think I saw a Greg Savage post not that long ago, and it was just asked a simple question: has anything changed? What's changed? Assume something's changed. What's changed?
Yeah,
And things
absolutely.
change, and I think people forget when people are looking for work or jobs, or considering changing their company or job situation. There's always something else happening as well. Like there's changes in the air, and they get excited, and change influences other parts of their business. There are other parts of their life as well, right?
Yep,
So there's always
absolutely.
moving parts.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay. Fourth question. Counter offer. How do you handle
Oh,
counter offer? It's our favourite.
yeah, I know it's a sore spot. That's for sure. Um, I always, when I'm speaking to candidates, I always prep them around, do you anticipate that you'll receive a counteroffer from your current employer? What would you do if that was to happen? So, and I actually say that, have you reconsidered what this would look like, and just keep it top of mind throughout the process. Now, and I tend to plant a seed in the fact that, firstly, an employee should be offended by a counteroffer, because it means that they didn't value the individual prior to them actually handing in resignation, and didn't see the value of them. If they've got a counteroffer, why weren't they paying that previously? So that will generally be the small seed that I would plant. And a counteroffer does not fix the reasons why that individual is leaving. So, whilst there might be a little bit more money on the table, you're still going to be faced with the same problem and the same issue as to why you're actually leaving the role and the employer in the first place. Um, so they're probably the key things that I would bring up. I'd certainly, revisit their motivations, revisit their reasonings, and why they want to leave, and the benefits of the role that they're about to take, and reiterate the reasons why that departure has come. Why you're actually leaving, because that's the reason and that's the motivation behind moving on to the next role. But I also say to the candidate, be really curious about why that you've received the counter offer, and what are the expectations if you accept it. If someone's putting another 10, 15, 20 grand on the table, well, what are the expectations behind it? And are they truly being valued, or is it because the employer, one, is scared, or two, doesn't have the resources to go and recruit that vacancy again, or whatever that might be? Are they actually counter offering because they are of value? But then I have to question, if they are of value, why didn't they offer it previously?
I like you. I think you would have been a great consultant when you're on a desk, because It sounds like you don't tell people. You kind of lead them down a path through questions. Just ask them questions, and let them answer them. Like, I love that approach, right? Because it doesn't feel like you're pushing at all. And I think for any junior recruiter out there, it's a great way to, there's a lot of times we talk counteroffer and we want to throw all this information at them and just hope that it sticks, but that's not how you're going to get it into them. You've got to ask them those questions, as you've just eloquently put, right?
Yeah,
What?
and what I've come to learn is you lead people down the path to come to their own conclusion. because people don't like to be forced into a decision.
No,
But if you put various scenarios on the table and make them think, plant that seed, they'll come to the right conclusion in the end.
absolutely agree. Last question. We are at,
Yes.
15 minutes now, so it's probably maxing out where we want to be. I don't see you as the sort of person that ever feels like they're in a slump, whether it be on your desk or emotionally, but how do you get yourself out of a slump?
Oh, look, we're all human, so we all have a slump, right?
Yeah.
And I do tend to think with age, you tend to actually deal with your slumps a lot easier than do when you're actually younger. But I think the most important thing is to allow yourself to be in the moment and feel the feels. Don't suppress them. Feel the feels, let them be there, be curious about them, but also be quick to open the door and let them back out. Let them know they're not welcome. I'm a big believer that you should surround yourself with people, the right people. So who you want to be, surround yourself with those sort of people. So if you are in a slump, make sure you've got the people around you that you want to be uplifted by. And every good operator should, and if you're a young recruiter out there, look into this. You should always have a mentor and or mentors. They don't have to be someone that you necessarily pay. It might be just someone who's been through the journey that you've been through, 5 or 10 years ago, and you decide that they're your person for the moment. And constantly be looping in with your mentor or mentors and talk to them and let them help you out of that slump that you're in. And also allow time to reflect and reset and, refer back to your goals, and why you're doing what you're doing and how did you get to the setback that you're in. And I think if you have reached a setback, depending on the situation, what's the learning moment? I'm huge, especially with my team, with everything that they go through. What have you learnt right now? How is that going to make you a better recruiter and ensure that, you don't actually repeat it again. So every piece of a challenge or a situation or setback that you have to learn from it.
Couldn't agree more. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for jumping on all the way from
Thank
sunny
you.
Newcastle today.
It's definitely sunny. Definitely
Very good.
spring is here.
I love it. Look, that's all we have time for you today, guys. As always, share it, like it, rate it. We're loving the feedback coming through. We're loving the support. So thank you. We're going to wrap this one up. As always, have an amazing day and may all your deals come true.